Good afternoon. Welcome to the press center of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine. Here is our weekly update of the situation in the operations area of the joint forces from 8th to 14th October 2018. During the last week, situation in the deterrence area of the Russian armed aggression in the Donbass was tense. Enemy continued to use weapons prohibited by Minsk agreements. Units of the joint operation continued to control the situation. In general, over the past week, from 8th to 14th October, the Ukrainian defenders' position fell under provocative fire by Russian occupation forces for 205 times. The biggest enemy activity was observed in Donetsk direction. From the beginning of the previous week, enemy continued to violate agreements by using artillery, mortars, anti-tank missiles, anti-aircraft guns, grenade launchers, heavy machine guns, small arms, and other infantry weapons. On October 8, Russian occupation forces shelled defense positions near Krymsk and Luhansk, firing 113 shots from 120 and 82 mm mortars. On October 9th, prohibited weapons were used for 14 times. Thus, enemy shelled 19 152 mm artillery shells, 30 122 mm artillery shells, and 74 182 mm mines. Moreover, disregarding Minsk agreements, on October 10th, Russian occupation forces fired 86 120 and 82 mm mortars mines against positions of our forces. Apart from that, on October 11th, enemy used mortars for 10 times, firing 87 120 and 82 mm mortars. The situation in the operations area is under full control of the joint operation forces. Our servicemen opened fire in response to suppressed enemy activity and by strictly adhering to Minsk agreements. As a result of the activity of the Russian occupation forces, 12 of our defenders were wounded in action. They were quickly transferred to military medical facilities where they are being treated. We wish them speedy recovery. We want to inform with grief that 3 of our servicemen were killed as the result of the Russian armed aggression, and 2 more fell victims to the IED. We express our sincerest condolences to the relatives and loved ones of our deceased defenders, as well as their combat comrades. According to the information of the main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, the Russian Occupation Command continued to secretly tighten control over the movement of the population in the temporarily occupied territories of the Donetsk and Luhansk regions. In particular, the checking posts around settlements are supposed to be equipped with a centralized system of personal electronic accounting. In this way, the enemy tries to improve the records of local residents for enlisting for military service as part of the Russian occupation forces, to intensify preventive measures for the unauthorized living of the Russian servicemen by places of their services, and to provide for the tracing and detentions of deserters. As for other news, an emergency situation took place in Ichnya, Chernihiv Oblast. A blast occurred on the 6th ammunition depot of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. At 3:20 a.m., October 9th, 3 storage facilities of the arsenal were exploded simultaneously, and in the next 20 minutes several others were exploded as well. At the time of the explosion, the depots were filled by 50%, the most scarce and critical ammunition for the Armed Forces of Ukraine from the 6th military arsenal was previously relocated to other storage facilities and arsenals with the protected types of storages. As of 3 p.m., as the result of the detention, about 30% of the entire arsenal was in fire. All facts which were gathered indicated that the most probable reason of the explosion is a sabotage. Armed Forces of Ukraine, in concert with other emergency and law enforcement agencies, continues to take all measures to protect and evacuate civilian population and to localize fire. As for now, intensity of blast has decreased significantly with rare blast heard. A number of special vehicles, aircrafts, and aerial reconnaissance are working to localize and eliminate consequences. Group from the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine and the General Staff of Ukraine are in place to coordinate all those efforts. On October 14th, Ukraine was celebrating a great holiday, Day of Defender of Ukraine. President Petro Poroshenko, as well as other honorable guests, took part in the opening ceremony of the Remembrance Hall on the territory of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine. The Remembrance Hall of the Defenders of Ukraine was created to honor the memory of servicemen of the Armed Forces of Ukraine who died for freedom, independence, and territorial integrity of Ukraine, world peace and order during 1992-2018. President, Supreme Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Petro Poroshenko received the tender of the Minister of Defense, General of the Army of Ukraine, Stepan Poltorak, on resignation from military service and decided to continue his work as the minister. We have witnessed a very touching ceremony of completion of military service by the General of the Army, Stepan Poltorak. But I want to emphasize that resignation from military service is not a punishment. This is not an indication of the shortcomings in the work. On the contrary, take into account the solemnity of the ceremony held on the eve of the Day of the Defender of Ukraine, it is a matter of public recognition of its high quality and social significance, the President has emphasized. The head of state reminded that in accordance with the requirements of the law of Ukraine on the national security of Ukraine, from January 1st, 2019, the post of the Minister of Defense of Ukraine shall be occupied by a civilian. Therefore, Stepan Poltorak submitted the relevant tender, and I, frankly speaking, accepted this tender heavy-heartedly, Petro Poroshenko said. Petro Poroshenko has also emphasized that appreciating the significant, crucial contribution of Stepan Poltorak to the revival of the Armed Forces of Ukraine and to the revival of the establishment of the National Guard of Ukraine, he decided that Stepan Poltorak would continue the management of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine already in the status of a civilian minister. During the working trip to the Khmelnytsky region, President of Ukraine, Petro Poroshenko, visited the Joint Operational Center of the Clean Sky 2018 multinational exercises in which Ukrainian military and military of the NATO member states take part. The trainings is intended to increase the level of interoperability of the air forces of the Armed Forces of Ukraine with the air forces of the United States and NATO, work out effective joint management of operations in the air, work out sharing of intelligence and surveillance capabilities, as well as cyber defense focused on the needs of the air forces. The Supreme Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces met with the Deputy Commander of the United States Cyber Command, Lieutenant General Vincent Stewart, and also talked with the commanders of the brigades and other units of the Armed Forces, National Guard, and State Bodyguard Service of Ukraine. He also stressed that this is the largest exercise in the last 4 years. It involves more than 50 aircrafts from 8 NATO member states and our planes of the Ukrainian Air Forces. The purpose of the exercises is increase the level of operability of our combat aircrafts with the Air Force of the United States and other member states of the alliance. This all information from us for now. Thank you for your attention. Captain Mykhailo Sharavara from the Press Center of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine.